All right. Welcome back, my friends, to the podcast that never ends. It doesn't end because I'm still here. It's your podcast. I'm simply the host, of course. You know that stuff, guys. If you don't know by now, this is the 34th episode or 34th installment of the opportunity I call the Arena of Ideas podcast. The title, of course, is A Bankrupt and Corrupt Education of a Once Proud Nation. This is going to be a big one. I got a bunch of people help me behind the scenes in this whole thing and everything else. All right, so this is your podcast. I am the host, of course. The places you can find this wonderful podcast: iHeart, Google, Spotify, Spreaker, speaker with an R. Big props to those guys. Big props because they're the ones that gave me this opportunity to get this wonderful microphone, this message out to you guys. All right? They're the ones that started the whole thing. Spreaker, of course, is the podcast arm for iHeart Radio. That's big. I mean, they're so big that they have to have a podcast platform. All right. Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, GeoSavin, Apple. It's also on YouTube as well. You can catch it all by Arena of Ideas and all those places. All right, places you can also comment because, of course, the ways in which you can get back to me. The biggest one seems to be word of mouth. You've also got my email at michaelkingston723@yahoo.com. You've also got my phone number, which is published there. If you really, truly are trying to get a hold of me and text me. A lot of people do that. Texting's real easy and simple, right? Basically, that's it. And with the way in which you do it, too, is make sure you subscribe, you download, you hit the plus sign, you hit the thumbs up. I don't care what you have to do, but do yourself a favor and do me a favor. You know, they're calling impressions. I'm over probably between 3,000 to 4,000 impressions now. I think somewhere in that neighborhood is the way in which you can help me help this podcast. Because if with the impressions and things like that where I can actually add all those things up, that's how they figure out what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and everything else when it comes to building this brand, building this podcast, building this up, and making this the best it can possibly be for all of us. Right? Right. All right. This is the experiment at the crossroads between content and conversation reinvented. It's a podcast for anything, everything, all things for everyone. This is your place to be. It's the triad of talk, the forum of focus, the kind of ways in which we chew the, kind of take bites and things and do things here and have angles and things when it comes to different ideas and thoughts. Straight fire, no holds barred, off the cuff, straight from the hip, shoot from the hip, wake up call. This is a way in which to do these following things. And what's happening is that you do have other famous, wonderful people out there that are doing podcasts and everything else. Well, I've already figured this out that, they start, if you took a triangle and you inverted it down, like out wide, and then it goes to a point down or towards you. People like Dr. Phil and Joe Rogan and people like that, that's great. They're doing what they're doing, but they start out here with a topic of discussion way out wide, right? And then as they go on, they start talking and everything else, the point ends up pointing right back to them. So it's about a topic of discussion about some great things and awareness things. I'm all about awareness on everything, but they start out wide and they work a point back to them. For me, it's starting at that point, and then it goes out wide, out towards what you guys want to talk about. You guys out there listening, contributing, helping me, doing this process known as the AOI podcast. It's what matters to me. All right. So anyway, there's also spontaneous things we could talk about sometime if you want to in a segment or something. But epic fail, social mania, which is what I call social media. Nothing is out of bounds. Gloves are off. Step your game up. Oh, by the way, give me an A or give me an F. All those things matter to me, man. All this stuff does. This whole podcast. I'm the man, the message, and the microphone. You know, that's... Just know this, that's what's happening here. Okay? That's the important part of this whole thing. All right. I am the conduit of content, the voice of the people, for the people, and by the people, an all-information podcast wielding truth, humor, wit, sarcasm, freedom, like a verbal weapon. Again, a man, a message, and a microphone. If you're screaming at the TV, the radio, or the sky over anything, or in your head over the BS that's out there, this is your place to be. I'm just trying to live my best life here. Let's light this candle. How do we light the candle, guys? Anyone? Dramatic pause. All right. Well, I don't hear any voices except for the ones in my head. LOL. Ha ha. All right. So what you got is, if you've got rants, raves, beefs, issues, pet peeves, OCD, you've got all problems, all are accepted here. The hows, whys, LOL, ROFL, WTF. Are you kidding me? Are you killing me? Whatever gets you up in the morning early, or whatever keeps you up way late at night over the things that are going on out there at night, the AOI is here for you, right? And I've always told you guys that, you know, here's what we do. We're talking heads and radio personalities give lip service about what to say, what to do, and everything else. They give you lip service. They tell you what you want to hear. The AOI podcast is real service in real time for you. I also forgot to mention that I'm, you know, this podcast, excuse me, this podcast gets out there all over the place. It gets in, you know, it's in Ireland, it's in England, it's in Scotland, it's in India. There's some other places that they have pockets of people listening. I'm sure there's people listening all over the world to this podcast. One would hope so. I'm definitely hoping so. All right. So now what for bid is what I like to call the Listener Contributor Club. It's getting large. It's growing. It's growing. I try to talk to at least 4 to 5 people a day, discussing what my podcast is about and giving everyone the opportunity, because a lot of people have never heard this format, or even a way in which that you can appreciate those out there, those that are listening, and people that have ideas. I want those ideas. I want people to give me the things that they want to talk about. And again, I create podcast episodes. This is a good multi-list here of all those, a bunch of people that I know. Now, there's probably more people than that. I just don't know everybody. But if you told me either through my email, through a text, word of mouth, or if you went to the 4 social media places that I actually also have, it's on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter to actually comment. You can actually go in there and comment and leave your social media presence to me, social mania, to me, letting me know what you think about everything. All right? All right. Detonia, Jen, Adriana, Chris, Chantel, Antonio, Jackie, Jared, Art. There's 2 Arts. There's always some art to everything, right? I got Luke. I got Walt and his wife. I've got Mike, Lori, Lonnie, Mark, Lexus. Again, this is Pueblo. Lexus, Eddie, Felicia, Emilio, Craig, John, Orlando, Caesar, E-Twist the rapper. Big props to him on his episode, the E-Twist Experience. If you get a chance to check that episode out, check it out. Good rapper. He's, again, local guy here in town. I've got Brandon, Gabby, Melissa, Jim, Audrey, Devin, Lynn, Keisha, Aisha, Tammy, Christine, Eric, Y. He know who you are, Eric, out there. Eric, Y. Rick, Kevin, Craig, Kevin, James, Kayla, Aaron, Mario, Andrea, Michaela, Caitlin, and Mandy, Jalen, Marcia, David, and Jessica, David and Jessica, you guys know who you are. You know who you are. And if you don't, I will tell you every day. LOL. ROFL. All right. Melanie, Danielle, Pablo, Zach, Davina, Megan and Megan H, Pat, Don and Quan. You guys know who you are. John, you know who you are too. Jojo, Melissa, Robert, Raymond, Kendra, Laura, Nim, Maddie, the three awesome sirens of this podcast. Trying to put some humor and sarcasm in there, guys. Darius, Joey, Charles, Briley, David, Santiago, Donovan, Chase, you know who you are. Oh, and speaking of Chase, I'm going to be doing a shout out, props and plugs to Chase. He's got a nice, cool channel on YouTube. We'll be talking about that. Be listening. All right. Ashton, Keith K, Keith and Sienna, JC, Santos, Ashley, David, Rocky, Julian, Desmond, Donovan, Charles, Darius, and Joey. My friend Brian S., of course, good friend of mine. Charles, Aston, Lexi, Nehemiah, Alexis, Ryan, Cindy, Mackenzie, Raphael, Angelica, Joey, Eddie, Chantel, Randy, Detonia, Jen, Gabby, Jade, Selena, Melissa, Joe. A couple of those names right there all work in the same place. Miguel, let's see. Zoe, Natalie, Michael and Tiffany, Vincent G, Anthony, Brandon, Alessandria, Jewel, Fabiola, TJ and Bobby, Jan and Ashley, another Michael, Darius. I think a few of these people I may have already mentioned before, but that's okay. I've got Mickey and Yvette, Alyssa, Eva, Benny, and then CJ. There you go. That's Pueblo. Wow. All right. Colorado Springs, part of the Listener Contributor Club. Again, there's probably more people out there listening than this. This is just the group of people that I have, and I'm working on all this, guys. I told you, I'm going to put you in here. Your name, you hear your name called, you know, it's a tip of the cap to you. This is a big shout out and props to everybody out there listening and contributing, i.e. helping me with this podcast. All right. I got Tim, Savannah, Kenny, Trey, Jacob. This is again Colorado Springs. Jacob, Brian, Lexus, Sharon, Don, Mark, and Joel. Two brothers. Really kick-ass people, really, if you will. Brian, Dave, John, Eric, and Don. It's Eric and then Don. Paul, Larry, Caden, and Luna. Caden, and then Luna. Mike, Johnny, and then Keyshawn. And then outside of that, I've got Carrie. She's from Minnesota. I got Mark from Fort Collins. I've got Josie from Santa Monica / Fort Collins. And I got Winter, Washington State. Winter also, the episode on A Winter's Tale. Got to check that one out. Very compelling, interesting conversation between Winter and myself in A Winter's Tale. You need to listen to that. You need to check that. You need to get into that. Do a deep dive and check that out and get into it. All right. Before I go any further, I need to do my disclaimer for this podcast. All right. Because, again, everyone has ideas and opinions and everything else. And this is, of course, free market. It's a First Amendment freedom to actually speak for 180 minutes on a podcast episode. But yet, the opinions, views, all the information, everything else I do is all, it's important, but you got to I need to lay this disclaimer out because it's important. All right. The views and opinions expressed in this and all Arena of Ideas podcast episodes are that of the host and guests that are on the podcast, not to be taken out of context, misrepresented by any means possible. Okay. Got that? All right. Oh yeah. And before I forget to remember here, LOL. Thanks to everyone listening. Please tell others about the AOI podcast. If this is your first time, then I want to welcome you to the 34th episode of this podcast. And then if you've been back and you've listened, like there's a few people I've talked to that have actually listened to all the episodes. They've gone through it all. They've done everything and they're waiting on the next one. So they're waiting on the one I'm presently doing right now. Again, I want to thank all of you out there for being a part of this podcast and a part of what happens here. And it matters to me. It truly does. I thank all of you. Of course, this is what I'm going to do right now actually is to break this thing up, slice it up a little bit and give it some breathing room and everything else, if you will. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to throw in some bumper music and then we'll get right back into the 34th episode. A bankrupt and corrupt education of a once proud nation. So you hear that? That's the bumper music. I'm going to be right back with this 34th episode. A bankrupt and corrupt education of a once proud nation. We'll be right back. Well, I'm going to pick it up. I may have had the microphone off for part of this episode, and I'm sorry if I missed anything, but I'm going to keep going. I've only got so much time. Time is money, so we're going to keep rolling along here. Okay, so anyway, a bankrupt and corrupt education of once proud nation. All right, stand and deliver, promises kept, education bankruptcy. The students wept. All right, that was an important title. I somehow had the microphone off, so I don't know what I've missed or didn't miss or what I didn't have. Hopefully, I got you guys in there for the roll call for the Listener Contributor Club. All right, I hope I did. Okay, so anyway, that's on me if I did that. I'm sorry about that, guys. Never say you're sorry, but guess what? I am. If I missed you guys, then we're going to keep going, keep rolling along. President Ronald Reagan, he had a great statement, and this is important when it comes to this education thing. Important for our future, important for our country, important because without the future and without children growing up and being knowledgeable and knowing everything, guess what? You're going to have big problems and big issues when it comes to everything, because without an educated future, you don't have anything, you're nowhere, you're nothing. So, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. In here, take freedom and replace it with education and learning. All right. The metaphor of restoring knowledge is this model / episode. One-room classes. And this is kind of an important thing because it used to be a long time ago, 18th century, 1800s, 1900s, so on and so forth. You had one-room classrooms where all the kids would learn in the same class. I don't care if you're from kindergarten all the way up to high school. You would all learn the same lessons because it's a one-room classroom. Everyone getting that opportunity to learn everything. So one-room classes, back to the basics, is a school consisting of one classroom where a single teacher taught academic basics lessons to several grades at the same time. We need to bring this bring this style back of teaching prowess because it's dumbing down control and power over knowledge, accountability, and learning for life's tests. Right? Completely. All right, that's basically that there. All right, let's again, this is an open letter from Savannah. She told me to just kind of come up with ideas and throw some of these things out there as tidbits for this episode. But no, it's important. So I'm going to read it in its entirety and in the format that she wanted it done. Again, Savannah from Springs, props and shout outs to you, of course. All right, school's preparing you for a life of work and not for a life. There are a few reasons I think why, again, this is an open letter for education. I think why schools have the scheduling they do, and some of the information I have got from just reading things people say on the internet. So it's not all just my idea. For one, schools have become designated to work around parents' work schedule. It is essentially a babysitter institution, so parents can work. It is also designed to get kids prepared to do the same thing as they get older. They've already been groomed into the lifestyle. All of this, despite the fact that it has been proven children and young adults learn better after 10 a.m. Schooling has become a tool of brainwashing, and in business, they take funding and give it to the sports programs rather than the teachers and the arts. Teachers are woefully underpaid and expected to take abuse from their students and parents and get nothing in return. Subpar teachers thrive in this kind of environment. It's no wonder why students go off the deep end, especially in their home life, is no better than or worse than the school life. We talk about work-life balance, but there should be talk about school-life balance. Homework should not be a thing. There's no reason why school cannot be completed in class, including large projects where students are expected to pay for materials and time themselves. All materials and time for school should remain at school. All right. This should help teachers teach kids to have a boundary between their personal life and their work life that will flow in their adulthood. Many people go above and beyond at work without compensation because they have been taught and groomed into doing it already. Hope you're listening along because this is very, very informative, very insightful. And again, thanks to Savannah for this open letter to this episode. This eats into people's personal lives until they do not have one. Work is a way to live and pay the exorbitant amount of bills we are required in order to survive. School is a way we should learn to survive in what kind of world and how to better manage it. It should have no bearing otherwise on our personal lives. If we cannot buy something for free, they do not get our work time effort for free. Back to funding of schools. Schools should not be the number one end all be all of school. Understandably, it's a doorway into a lucrative career and brings in sponsors and money to the school. So it is still necessary, however, it should not overwhelm everything else into non-existence. Arts, home, economics, wood shop, college courses, band, everything creatively positive should also be on equal footing. Put sports on top of the tier if you must, but it does not deserve special treatment in other types of classes where put on equal footing. Students should not be made to feel less than for the things they like. Proper education classes for financials, computers, health, all these are just important as, if not more, so than history, science, and math. I read once that math classes are such, and they are not to make people feel stupid, but to exercise and keep the brain healthy, a task that can be completed far easier by challenging students in areas they actually care about, teaching them to adapt, overcome in areas they do not excel at. Like math, it is also important to teach them not to always give up when the going gets rough. But there should be a line drawn and also that says it's okay to stop when the outcome is no longer worth the effort. Of course, schools would have to have oversight on their spending, and nobody wants that. Otherwise, they would have to get out of politics and start doing things correctly, thinking of the kids rather than their own pockets. Perhaps this is why social media, or social mania as I call it, has become so big as well. The younger generation learning things, in quotes, they otherwise would not get to. And the problem is none of the information is being fact-checked after they see it on the internet because they have not been taught that skill. They have a world of information in the palm of their hands and they do not use it. It's all about emotional reaction and not logical. Possibly because their emotions are not being properly taught to them in school like they should be, and are instead just written off as hormones. It may be true that hormones affect students as they get older, but that shouldn't invalidate their experiences. This is a better way to teach them emotional control, like a mental health class. Would be good, wouldn't it? Of course, I did the Minefield of Mental Health episode, and yes, it would. Check that too. That's another episode you can listen to also. All right. So, the point is there is so much more more a school can do if they were given the proper funding and their target ways to better their students rather than cater to politicians / politics. Schools should be a no zone for things like that, right? It's an area to learn something new, not to be given an opinion and expect to respect or adhere to it. Their own opinions should be acknowledged and respected, and they should be taught that it's okay for their opinions to be wrong. When new information is brought to light, there is nothing wrong with being wrong, only refusing to acknowledge it and learn from it. These are the skills schools should be focusing on, and maybe so many of the problems focused on schools, shootings, bullying, abuse, would go down because kids would be taught to think and understand rather than react. Just some thoughts from wonderful Savannah from Colorado Springs. And yes, what's funny is she talks about all those things at the end of this open letter. And I've covered a lot of those things. There's safety in school. There's safety in schools and public spaces. I've done the episode on bullying. I've done the other episodes like on mental health and things. So yeah, no, it's all important. Thanks to Savannah. That was a great open letter. She, like I said, she's an ex facto great person behind the scenes, helps me with so many things. Pretty close to being a producer, kind of editor, kind of person that does help me along the process of this podcast. All right, so giving props and shout outs to this episode 34, Bankrupt and Corrupt, Education of a Once Proud Nation. Okay, Mark in Springs, Savannah in Springs, John in Colorado Springs. I got Keisha, John, and Benny. I also got Benny in there too. Thanks to all of those people for giving me the insight and everything else here, dealing with this. This episode is basically a fusion of two episodes I was writing for. I started with one, and then we had the other one where Stand and Deliver. So basically, I had two different episodes that kind of fused them together to make one. Again, I got Keisha, John in there. I've got some other people in there I already had in there. All right, so anyway. So it's basically, this part of it is educational bankruptcy, degree or no degree. College versus not spanning 10 years, and why does it take a piece of paper degree when real-world experience and applied training, trades, pipe fitters, welders, electricians, etc., construction, etc., among fields have quality people everywhere, and I don't have a college degree either. I do not. I've just survived on my own and done the very best I can do. To this point, I'm in my 50s. Of course, you guys know that. But anyway, it doesn't take a degree. You don't have to have a piece of paper to know that you're a great person. You're qualified in doing many things in this life, and you can accomplish whatever you put your mind to. That has no control over someone's piece of paper. Now, if you have one, some places require that, and you can actually probably do more and have more of an illustrious career and make more money. You can with a degree. That's true too, but also with trades and things like that, that's another good angle and end of it, right? All right, so there are BAs, masters, and doctorates working in work. I also know this. There's BAs, masters, and doctorates working in telemarketing, convenience stores. No diss. I'm not dissing these jobs. I'm just saying there's people with these degrees that don't get the right. They do not get the right degree that helps them as per what they're doing, and they're not doing the jobs that they have the degrees for, and they're just having to work to pay the bills because we all do, right? All right, so all of what so a degree is not all of what it's cracked up to be. Again, if you have one, great. I'm glad for you. Congratulations, kudos. When you factor in the following: student loans, job placement, a lack of education in education, some schools do not take learning seriously enough due to narratives, ideologies, and politics biases. And again, the open letter from Savannah really brought forth and cut to the chase on a lot of that stuff we're talking about here. All right, so All right. The pros and cons of what you're up against will make your head spin. Schools. Gaming the system from cost and brainwashing students that if you don't have a degree from a great school, your future is bleak. Well, the bigger the school, the bigger the cost it costs for student loans. It's in hundreds of thousands of dollars for many people. Yes, I'm not saying a higher learning isn't important. It's just the fact that in this episode, we are delving into the following: pros versus cons of both, the average loans and expectations of when this is possible to be paid off. Job placement based upon the market and availability given a degree, right? The percentage of data about workforce participation and all categories related to the opinions in this episode, right? To my opinions in this episode. A bird-eyed view of a 10-year model to test the worth and mettle of this theory. Making it affordable for all walks of life to make it possible, right? Because all this, what's funny is all the schools, all the tuitions and everything else keep going up, right? No matter what you do, they keep going up. You can't fight it. You can't win. All right. So, then it doesn't make it possible for all the rest of us. It's kind of like that one room school where all the kids learn from the same exact model and everything else, and they all learn from everybody learns from everyone because it's kindergarten all the way up because all they can do is afford the one classroom for the entire school. But that's the way they all can learn, right? That's why I'm wanting to get us to get back to something like that, but making it a level playing field for everyone, so everyone has a chance to be doing the education thing. And again, if it was cheaper and not quite as expensive, maybe other people, every walk of life would all go in and try to get to school. Some people can't though. Some people are out there working 3 jobs just so they can try to get there, to get a degree, have a piece of paper so they can do something with their lives, right? Right. All right, so given the fact that either by choice or hardship, many intelligent and articulate people don't have the option to participate in higher learning, the cost of schooling based upon where you go, right? Where you go to learn. No, just remember, colleges aren't lowering financial responsibility. They're not. A lack of investment in education and educators is one of the 10 reasons U.S. is failing. Educators as professionals are undervalued and underpaid, and students are missing out on improved educational outcomes. This has been erased, censored, and stricken from the learning process, right? Since around the 60s. Around the 60s when they started 60s is about when they started devaluing and taking education out of education, and throughout the decades and so on and so forth, they keep striking everything from it. It used to be like U.S. history, and then it was civics, and then it's world history, and so on and so forth as an example. All right? So, I mean, look, I'm just saying that, here's the thing, to have control and power over somebody, if someone's not educated enough to know what you're saying and doing, then it doesn't matter. You can have control and power over the people. And that's wrong. All right. So let's see here. I already got that. Okay. The worst part and mind numbing is that the hold your horses. Tell me if you've heard this before. The low income among America are the ones who suffer and can't seem to keep up and have a greater sense of failure due to their upbringing, right? Educational systems is equal to the amount of money you can throw at it. Meaning if you have all the money, or if your family has all the money in the world, they can throw you into all these high pollutant schools. There's magnet schools, there's charter schools, there's all kinds of these different schools, right? And so Basically, it used to be that it was just a public education. Everyone got an education. There's private school. There's all these things. Well, all that money, you can all throw all that money at everything you want to, right? Instead of working hard, studying, and being a part of its success, not the statistics of failure. Public school, a school supported by public funds. A magnet school, public school with specialized courses of curricula, usually offering greater courses, usually offering technology and specialization to attract students and qualify them based upon standards. Charter schools, it's a school that receives government funding yet operates independently. Problem is, as taxpayers, you have no jurisdiction or say-so or over the influence of over what is the best interest of the learning model right there. Private school, a school supported by a private organization or private individuals rather than government. So control of educational standards. Crazy, right? I mean, it's, I had to do the research and look them up, and it's, it's crazy that you have all these ways in which they chop and they control and they segregate all the students. So instead of everyone being all in these classrooms together and actually having the same technology and everything else, you've got people segregated. And so basically, you're going to have to go way over the top when it comes to education and learning to be able to get to where the rest of the people are, right? Because you have to fight twice as hard to get up that same hill. When they got a helicopter ride up to the top of the hill, you're having to climb that entire hill, metaphorically, of course. Back to the other part about the private school, there's a dress code, curriculum, and standards. Note, independent schools are overseen and by a board of governors or trustees. Private schools are run by owners and are selective to what and where, how decisions are determined. A distance education, aka distance learning, is education of students who may not be available for in-room learning. Learner and teacher are separate online, and a lot of that stuff was during COVID, right? Of all of these, I remember a time as a kid that you had the education motto. You had to work hard for everything. Typewriters, pens, and paper, and other educational supplies might be a library card, reference materials, the typewriter, or pen and paper among tools to assist you as well. 7 levels of education. Early education, 5 to 7 years. Primary education, 7 to 11 years. Lower secondary, 12 to 15. Undersecondary through high school. You got post-secondary, short cycle, and then basically kept and now. So you have a time I remember education was learning, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Physical education and a way to physical education. Yeah, guys, that used to be an actual class in school. And if you didn't pass that, and if you didn't go and you didn't go out and you didn't pass a swim test, you didn't pass high school. And really, if you don't get an education and there's no education in education, means you're not going to pass the lessons of life. So make sure you guys are learning everything, doing your own research and everything else there is too. So if you're learning something, do your own research and look it up too, because what you're actually being taught might be a narrative or an ideology, not the actual lesson. Right? Right. All right. So, and a way to prepare our youth for a future in learning. All schools made sure to give every student the same opportunities. Now, forgotten is America's identity and rankings in the world, elite and competitive, not forgetting that a respect for the institution of knowledge remained that as well-funded arm of information remained as true as possible. With the exception not doormats to socialized interpretations of it. No common core, look it up, injecting ideologies and narratives and personal control and power, utopia-based views over a learning curriculum for success and future endeavors. That's for everybody, man. This critical race theory, and this common core, and all these other different things, these words they bounce around and jump around at you. That's not really you're not really getting an education that way, because learning is actually a teacher or someone in that format giving out information to all of you and then testing that knowledge by throwing a test at you every now and then to make sure you're comprehending everything. You're learning what you're actually doing. Right? Right. Exactly. All right. So chopping this up a little bit, I'm going to go into this next little thing here, and we're going to break it up with some more bumper music because, it's quite a bit to take in. That first part was my bankruptcy and education part of it. Next is Stand and Deliver. And again, there's an 80s movie called Stand and Deliver. It was where this one teacher took the worst in the school, maybe even the whole school district, and turned them all into great learning students that actually excelled in education because he cared enough to teach them things so they learned. And so the barometer of the whole thing is that they learned and they moved on and they were better citizens and parts of society. So that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to go into a little bit of bumper music right now. We're going to get back to this 34th episode. Bankrupt and corrupt education of a once proud nation. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back. I just wanted to get real quick into at least a little bit of bumper music, break something up. You guys can take a mental break and everything else. They always give you breaks in school, right? Okay, so sorry about that. Never say you're sorry, Mike. Okay, anyway, I am, because, you try to be the best you can be and try to be better than you were last time. I always tell people, be 1% better today than you were yesterday. All right. An open letter and all to future generations to come. Of course, the wonderful open letter by Savannah. And basically, abyss and learning leprosy debacle. President Reagan, I already read that off. The following for this, and let's see. Episode, replace freedom and education. Okay, I already did that part. Let's see. Fact. The Century Foundation, the United States is underfunding the K-12 programs, public schools, by over $150 billion annually. Taking away from the education, robbing more than 30 million school children of their resources they need to succeed in the classroom. It's already bad enough that we have everything broken up and everybody segregated and everything else, and all those other things we were talking about when it came to that process of education. You've already, so basically you're tying the hands behind the backs of the students and expecting them to be able to stand up and fight when it comes to living in life and having to deal with the struggles and the real things out there in the world. Once you get beyond old enough and you're an adult, and then you go into the world, now it's too late, because the other time was when you were impressionable and you had a chance to learn something. Now you're not. All right. So basically, look at that. That's some huge things right there. Let's take all that in, guys. Take all that in, because you know what? According to a new first of its kind study released today, note, what is the biggest problem with the educational system? Answer, a lack of focus on the results, right? Students are expected to meet high standards. The argument goes and the process of education takes precedence over analyzing education, results in policy making circles. Excuse me. When did U.S. education start declining? Most think during the 60s, due to the fact that America went from U.S. history to civics to world history, meaning I'm just giving you that reference to the history part of it. Well, for the intended purpose of this article, it stated that in the 80s there was a decline in the growth of U.S. productivity after rising every year for 50 years. Students' scores on a battery of different subjects and tests dropped sharply in 1967 and declined through the 80s. Again, the country was going through a lot of things. We're going through different changes and social unrest and all these other things. But really, I mean, education should still be an education for the kids, right? For everybody. Student scores on a battery of different subjects test dropped sharply in 67, like I was just saying, and declined throughout the 80s. CRT, critical race theory, a radical set of ideas holding that basis in holding bias inherent in parts of Western society, especially in its legal and social institutions, on the basis of their having been primarily designed for implemented by white people. Common Core is an educational initiative from 2010. What K through 12 students throughout America should be learning about. Kids need not be educated under control power by our government, stating they want to keep us safe, right? Which means they know better than us to make decisions for our children based upon ideologies and narratives, giving opinions and personal preferences instead of a fact-based approach to get the best learning experience for the children to boost our rankings in the world. Yeah, all this Common Core and CRT, and then they've got this, indoctrination type stuff going on where they're trying to get you, these younger kids and everything else into thinking about, their personal preferences in genders and all these other things. Well, you know what? Fine. If you want to learn that kind of stuff, you do it outside of the classroom. And the classroom should be focused on the educational part, not on this other part that they're pushing everything through for everyone. Right? Right. All right. Note, many critics of education in USA state that standardized testing does not allow students to learn things merely prep for tests, not life lessons. That's important, man. If you're just teaching someone information for a test and not for the actual value of learning something, then you've learned nothing at all, because you just learned how to prepare and how to pass something, not how to pass life. All right, so top 15 failures affecting students. Deficits in government funding, decline in school safety, challenges with technology, controversy over charter schools and vouchers, problems with Common Core, decreased teacher salaries, and more. 10 issues. All right. Parents not involved, school closures, school crowding, overcrowding, pros and cons of technology, gifted programs not to be open for all. School spending needs a boost, better education and incentives for teachers, retaining students, keeping them out of trouble, right? Note, we have no real solutions for common questions and simple goals to be attained. First, you need to bring back the authority in the hands of the teachers, right? Right now, it's like, a lawless society and everything else. And, students going in school and attacking other students or attacking teachers, and everything else just is not helping this whole part back. We need to get it back to where the teachers have the authority, right? And also the schools have the authority to protect themselves and protect the other students and the ones trying to cause the harm too. Bring back repercussions and responsibility on the onus of all in every school. Create a level playing field for all students to have equal opportunities. Technology. Enforce attendance policies, incentives for positive numbers. Make sure every school district, each state, has the proper tools and checked for compliance. Parents' participation, if possible, to reinforce learning. Check the phones, return after school is done. Take ideologies, narratives, agendas, any behaviors that do not allow students to get a proper learning process. Student habits to succeed. I'm tired of hearing that the same issues, problems, and answers. We need a national curriculum that ensures all students receive a proper education. America keeps throwing money at overseas problems. We chirp of some of the same future we deal with some of the same future generations. Create a better wage and resources for schools and the educators themselves, right? Come up with a task force, right? State run and assigned the districts. I know the system keeps failing, yet we need to ensure all students are treated equally, right, to education, with checks and balances, accountability, and responsibility to make sure higher learning remains a priority financially and professionally run. So basically, it's important because it's in the hands of the taxpayers. It's where it should be. Because we all pay our taxes, that's where the school funds should come. And I told you about the numbers when they're all being taken out and erased and all that good stuff, right? Right. So basically, that's it. There's more about it, but mine basically is an awareness to the fact of what's going on and what's important to all of us is an education. And it shouldn't have to cost you, $1 billion, and shouldn't cost you your life or your livelihood or your knowledge or education when it comes to this whole situation. All right. So we're going to dive into a couple things here with the mic check. Remember the legends and quickly get into the props and plugs for Chase. And I'm going to go back into now another commercial break. And we'll be right back. Here we go. All right. We're back. I welcome you back to the podcast, Arena of Ideas, episode 34, Bankrupt and Corrupt Education of a Once Proud Nation. All right, so I'm going to go into the props and shout out for Chase Bruner. I know I do Comedy Corner normally, but anyway. All right. He's on YouTube and has a channel there covering from snakes to vehicles and beyond. Chase Bruner is a content creator and YouTube influencer who needs no introduction, really. It's ChaseBrunner. Look him up. That way, just type that in. You should be able to find him on YouTube. All right. And then also go subscribe to him also and give him a shout out and watch his videos. All right. It's at Chase Brunner 358. Subscribers and for subscribing to him. He's got 377 amazing videos. Loves his snakes and animals, crazy about cars, and in automotive bliss and a motorhead. All right, so there's for Chase. All right, so now we're going to do the comedy corner. Okay? All right, so, all right. What does a female snake use for support? A cobra. Go stand in the corner. I hear it's 90 degrees. Oh, wait. Dad, I'm cold. Wait, Dad, I'm cold. Go stand in the corner. I hear it's 90 degrees. Dad, make a sandwich. Let's see. Dad, make me a sandwich. Dad, poof, you're a sandwich. What kind of bagel can fly? A plain bagel. All right, that covers all that. All right, so I got those out of the way. Boom, 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 and boom. Okay. All right. It's not a perfect situation, and I'm tripping over my tongue, trying to get back into this whole thing again when it comes to this process. All right, so let's get into the two reads here, dealing with. Okay. What we're going to do is get into the two things now, which is the mic check and remember the legends. Okay, so we'll go mic check first. All right, that sounder is the mic check. Thanks, props to Melissa. She came up with Sublime. She wanted Sublime done. Matters to me, remember? It's your podcast. I'm the host. All right, so Sublime. From Long Beach, California, formed in 1988, considered an American reggae rock, ska punk, on MCA Records. Brad Novell, lead singer, had his bouts with heroin, and in the end, lost his fight against it. Gone way too soon, and his vocals and songwriting create a great vibe beyond the genres of music just created some transcendent music for the ages. The frontman died before the band went viral. Check out their catalog of music. Their laid-back style with an alternative vibe, Sublime is another casualty to a lifestyle. Now teaming with Rome and performing to more audiences, songs like Santeria, What I Got, and Then Some. Such an impact. Singer Lana Del Rey did a cover version of Doing Time by them. There's way more about them. Check out their catalog. See what you think. They're just a great band. Came out in the 90s. See what you think there. Okay? All right. Of course, that was a sounder for the Remember the Legends. Today is hello. Having technical difficulties today. All right. Okay, so Nikolai Tesla is the Remember the legend? Amazing. A amazing inventor and engineer, born July 10th, 1856. Died January 7th, 1943, discovered the patent rotating magnetic field, basis of alternative current machines, developed three-phase electric power. The guy did a ton, man. I think it's my ears over the headphones. All right. He became an immigrant in America in 1884. He also created induction coil used in radio technology. In 1883, created the induction motor and what we use as alternating current today. When he arrived in America, he had a total of 4 cents in his pocket and a whirl of inventions and patents. Worked with Thomas Edison, who stole some of his creative properties, was the creator of shadowgraphs, aka X-rays. Tesla is given credit for so many processes that are still in use today, from radio, AC electricity, and even X-rays and more. TV equipment, even prove the Earth is a conductor and can be used in such a capacity. Lived in Colorado Springs from 1899 to 1900, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Check out his brilliance and his inventions, please. All right. So, on a time crunch here, so let's get into the close. All right, we have the mailbag. We have everything else. You can respond to me the way you can on social media and every other way you possibly can. I already did the mic check. Thanks to Nick again. I already did the Remember the Legends. And again, Melissa for Sublime today and everything else. This is your first time listening to this podcast. Again, if this is your first time listening, I welcome you here. If you've been here before and you're listening and now you're hearing another episode, this being episode 34, Bankrupt and Corrupt Education of Once Proud Nation, then I would like to welcome you here and thank you. I consider all of you family and friends, right? In this process, in this situation. All of you family and friends, completely. Again, this is your podcast and I am the host, and I'm trying to work on being better every single time I come out and I have the microphone in front of me and I try to make this happen. Look, it's not a perfect system. It's not a perfect world. Mine is an exercise in appreciating what you guys come up with and getting out your message. Sometimes it's not as clean and crisp as you want it to be, but I try to do the best I can do every single time. Again, if you're back here listening again, I want to thank you for being here. So until next time, this has been your host, Mike Kingston of the AOI podcast, your podcast. Have the best of the rest of your day. And until next time,